Dawn of the Dead's blend of slapstick gore and social satire showed just how much horror films had evolved in the 1970s. But the shadow of Norman Bates was about to fall across small-town America in a film which went right back to basics. It's so lame to scare us out of our wits. The final destination on my horror itinerary is the scene of the crime of Halloween. Made in 1978, it sees the murderous masked figure of Michael Myers stalk babysitters in the midwestern town of Haddonfield, Illinois. It's one of the most convincing locales ever featured in a horror movie, but most of it was filmed by director John Carpenter in the Californian suburbs of South Pasadena. John, what drew you to Pasadena for a location?
Well, if we look around, it's the trees, it's the houses, it's the feeling of the streets, it's the way the lawns are kept up. It feels very middle America to me, in a kind of an idealized way. I mean, truly, they're not houses like this. It's just a beautiful area. There's something about my youth in Halloween nights or at night in the little town I grew up in Kentucky. It's the same kind of feel to it. Nobody was around. Nobody went out. The bleakness is the issue. I wanted the empty streets. I wanted it quiet, almost like a ghost town.
Carpenter uses the empty streets to build a pervasive sense that his characters are under surveillance from a barely glimpsed figure.
We just didn't have any money. So you had to rely on seeing him, not seeing him, all sorts of tricks.
Oh, look.
Look where?
Behind the bush.
I don't see anything.
The guy who drove by so fast, that one you yelled at.
Oh, subtle, isn't he?
Halloween wasn't the first film to have a faceless killer terrorizing a bunch of teenagers, but its sheer visceral power and the skill of Carpenter's direction gave it an impact and a success beyond any of its predecessors. More than any other film, Halloween ushered in the age of the slasher movie.
The scariest scene in Psycho is when Arbogast comes up the stairs. That moment of coming out of nowhere influenced me for Halloween. I thought, well, if you establish this guy and you establish he can be anywhere, then the audience is going to start to believe he's anywhere, in any shadow.
It's with this increasing sense that the killer is omnipresent that Halloween becomes a true horror film, something much more than just a well-executed thriller. Like the devil in The Exorcist, Michael Myers is anywhere and everywhere and seems unstoppable by any physical means. It makes the film an immensely scary watch.
I watched it with an audience, and I've never heard screaming like this. Just out and out screaming. The scene after the closet scene, it's a Panavision shot, so she's in the foreground in the doorway, and we're focused on her, and in the background, his body's lying there, out of focus, and he sits up. The place goes nuts. been a long time since I've been here.
So this is Laurie
Yeah.
Strode's house.
It is. It is. It is. Wow. We have a little shrine set
Little
up here.
shrine.
On its perfectly timed release at Halloween in 1978, Carpenter's film became an enormous success.
Apparently there are Halloween tours, stabathons around this neighborhood. How do you feel about that?
I had no clue at the time that any of this would be taking place, because all we wanted to do was make a movie. We were young, the future was ahead of us, life was great, and all we cared about was getting a movie done. I had no idea this would happen.
Halloween is the consummate slasher movie, but I'm not so enthusiastic about its legacy. A slew of lower quality, increasingly gory serial killer outings that would overwhelm the genre for years to come, like horror's equivalent of Dutch elm disease.
One of the reasons that Halloween ushered in so many horror films was that because it was cheap and it made a lot of money. So others said, oh great, what a great way to make some money. Just because I opened the door doesn't mean that every person that steps through is going to take the horror film to its next plateau. But I could have. You can blame me for anything you want to. I take full responsibility.
But, I mean, you see the movie and you're like, all right, what did you think when you first saw it?
Back at the Los Angeles Horror Convention, the zombies are having a lie-in, and I'm looking at a roll call of more than half a dozen actors who've played Michael Myers in what's become an unkillable Halloween franchise. Sometimes it doesn't feel like things have moved on much since 1978, which for me marks the end of the last sustained period of horror creativity. Today's directors often seem content just to follow, zombie-like, in the footsteps of Carpenter, Hooper and Romero.